From the Vancouver Art Gallery, it's
Hello! Welcome to Misha and Diane Watch Santa Barbara. We are watching week 138.
Any messages?
No, none I can repeat.
in our evening viewing. We saw Alejandro Rey, who was the Dr. Ramirez who took Brandon from Santana. He and Terry Garr were in an episode of It Takes a Thief, season 2, episode 13. And Ty Henderson, who played Nick's friend Sam, Dylan's friend Sam, was in an episode of The Rookies, season 4, episode 2. Saw Ronnie Shell, Frank Armstead on The Carol Burnett Show, and this week, Louise Sorel returned to Days of Our Lives as Vivian Alameda. And we watched episode 138 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Monday, March 16th, 1987.
Eden tells Mason she's thinking of asking Haley to be a bridesmaid. Mason suggests Victoria, and Eden says it's not appropriate. Eden has invited Cece and Sophia to a fake charity auction at the Orient Express, where the wedding will actually be thrown. With Cece and Sophia arguing, I don't know, this wedding will go off. They may both leave the house and not be found. Cruz has traced Dottie to a shelter in Las Vegas. Cruz is actually not in this episode.
I almost wondered if perhaps sending him to Montana is a way to get him off the show just for a little while. Maybe he was doing a play or something like that.
Or just doing vacation.
Or having vacation, exactly.
Santana, yay, is happy that she's gotten to spend the day with Brandon, double yay. With Gina out of the house, I guess. It's getting easier for her to get permission from Cece to see her own son. And another thing that excited me in this scene, and I don't know if it was scripted or the actors just decided it was time, but Santana pushes herself up against Brick, all lovey-dovey, and he puts his arm around her. Mm-hmm. So I think in the background of this show, if not on screen, something must be going on with Brick and Santana.
Mm-hmm.
Or the actors are like, okay, worked for Cruz and Eden.
Yeah.
Eden tells Brandon about the wedding, and he tries on this little suit that she's had made for him. Then later, at Johnny's, Brandon tells Gina that Cece and Sophia are getting married tomorrow. Brick sees Brandon talking to Gina and suspects immediately what he's told her. He tells Santana, forewarned is forearmed.
Now, it's interesting to me that none of the other Capwells sort of saw this weak link.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like, this makes it sound like Brick's got some plan to divert Gina during the wedding day, which is tomorrow. Gina hires this hippie minister to perform the ceremony, of course, because she's marrying Keith, if you've forgotten. She drugs Keith's coffee, but before he can take a sip, Keith's co-workers show up to throw him a surprise bachelor party because, of course, they all work at City Hall, and the marriage license that Gina tricked Keith into signing has come through one of their hands, and the information has been passed around the office. So Keith never drinks his coffee. He gets rid of the guys and is yelling at Gina when Reverend Seahorse shows up to perform the ceremony. And Gina ends up paying her last $50 just to get rid of him. Gina tells Keith then that Sophia and Cece are getting married tomorrow. And Keith says, did she drug him? Gina tells Keith she's going to bring the curtain down on Eden's surprise. So fast you won't know what hit her. So Gina's change of personality that she got when giving the tape to Kelly didn't last very long.
No, it did not.
This is if Gina wasn't so bad, Santa Barbara wouldn't be so good. Keith taunts Julia about the fact that Mason is going to be her new boss. Mason tells her that Smith Caldwell has made him an offer, but he has yet to accept.
Now, I was trying to work out why Mason would necessarily be Julia's boss.
Well, was she being made a partner? I thought that was the offer that she'd been made. But maybe that was a different company. I don't know. Yeah, I'm surprised that they're not both the same. Cece and Ted argue with Sophia and Haley about whether she should have gone to see a counselor or whether they should have kept it all in the family. Sophia tells Haley that she's had years of counseling herself, and Haley should do what's best for herself. Haley goes to see the counselor, but is overwhelmed by the whole thing and runs to Ted. Ted, though, tries to convince her once again that Jake is the rapist, and she tells him she's going back to the crisis center, which I think is a good choice on Haley's part. Mm-hmm. Sophia and Cece argue about bringing strangers into their family to help Haley, as Eden shows up to make sure that they show up at the charity auction. She finds them in the middle of an argument. This is actually interesting that it's the Haley thing that's going to mess up this wedding. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have thought of that. If you try to think, what could come between Sophia and Cece to mess up this wedding, that isn't what occurred to me. So Julia and Santana help Eden with the wedding preparation stuff at the beach house, and then they grab everything and run out the back door when Sophia shows up to complain about Cece. She says, "Sometimes I wonder if I was really stupid to marry that man in the first place." Eden, of course, is freaking out over all this. Later, Eden shows up at the Capwell mansion to see if Sophia has tried on the dress yet that she had Rosa put up in her room. And Sophia says, "Oh, I'm not coming." Sophia and Cece leave, yelling at each other. And Eden says, "This is not happening." Julia, who, as you recall, is rushing out of Eden's house with a cake or some dresses or something, I forget what it was, only to find Mason is inside her new house. And Mason says that her locks are as strong as tissue paper, so he's ordered her a new security system. He also says he's taken the job and is now her boss. She says, "Well, I'm going to take the Jake Morton case anyway." He says, "Well, at some point we'll have to get you some cases that you'll actually win that can pay us some money." Mm-hmm. Julia brings out some champagne to celebrate, but doesn't want to open it there. She tells Mason to take it home and drink it with Victoria. So, don't know if Mason has caught on that Julia does not want to drink alcohol. Mm-hmm. But of course, Victoria won't want to drink alcohol. So he gives the champagne back to Julia, saying that maybe they can drink it if they ever agree on a case. Mm-hmm. Julia then sends the bottle back to Victoria and Mason's place. So I feel like both Julia and Victoria may have enough information in their heads to realize that the other is pregnant, even if Mason isn't putting anything together.
Yeah.
That's it for our Monday episode. So we'll be having a wedding tomorrow in Santa Barbara. So we'll see if that's tomorrow is really the next episode. Just had the short credits. Rape crisis consultant and piano were credited as often. A little something about Will Estes, who plays Brandon in this one and only episode. I don't know if I forget what happened to Brandon Call, if he was sick or at school or something. But Will Estes shows up in IMDb as having been in 293 episodes of Blue Bloods. So I can't really picture him because I've never seen Blue Bloods, and he had a ton of little credits in between Santa Barbara and Blue Bloods. But that's probably what most people would know him from.
Now, do we have any sense of him being at all related to Rob Estes?
I forgot to check because that's the first thing I thought of. In fact, I kind of confused them when I was first doing the search. But I forgot to check. Let me click on. I'm still on that page. Let me click on info. Nope, that didn't do the right thing. Birth name, William Estes Nipper. That's unexpected. Parents, Bill Nipper. Family, Mary Lou Nipper. That's it. So Rob Estes is apparently unrelated, especially as that is not his last name. All right, we will be back after we watch episode 670. Well, we've already watched it. This is another one of these where we do 2 in a row. We'll be back to talk about episode 670 of Santa Barbara. We'll see you in 2 seconds. Bye.
Bye-bye.
No, he's not mentally deficient. Not noticeably, anyway. Look, the point is, my fiancé and I just want to get this over with as soon as possible.
As in goodbye, cruel world.
I'd be better off with a sex-starved pygmy than you, Keith. Now, on second thought, you are a sex-starved pygmy.
Well, how long did you plan to keep me drugged? Until death do us part?
I guess I thought you'd get used to it.
You know, Cece had a real good shot at getting used to it. He almost put a contract out on it.
Welcome back.
Hello.
We watched episode 670 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Tuesday, March 17th, 1987. We saw Marge Doucet on The Hardy Boys. We previously, about 12, 13 years ago, we watched all the Nancy Drew episodes of the Nancy Drew Hardy Boys mysteries, but thought, just for completeness, we should go back and watch the Hardy Boys once, partly because we were almost finished the 1950s Hardy Boys story that we've been watching from the old Mickey Mouse Club, and partly because we're going to see Sean Cassidy in concert on February 11th. So I thought we will try to race through a few of those episodes and get to one where he actually sings a song.
Wonder how many young people we'll see there.
They'll all be older than us, perhaps. Marge Doucet, of course, will be Pamela Capwell, number 2 someday. Spoiler alert, Pamela's alive. Cece and Sophia argue about whether Haley's rape should stay private. Ted worries that the wedding won't go off because of this argument, and it's all his fault. He and Eden decide to convince Cece and Sophia to go to the charity auction separately. So when Cece and Sophia show up in the atrium, both changed into their good clothes, they realize they've been tricked by Ted and Eden into going to the luncheon together. Eden says there's a limousine waiting. Sophia says she could never resist Cece when he's wearing his tuxedo.
Now, I have to say, the outfit they have picked out for Sophia is very wedding dress adjacent. It's actually a little over the top, even for the 80s. So,
For a luncheon.
Yeah. So I would think that if she was kind of thinking a little more in these terms, it wouldn't be a really far stretch for her to foresee this wedding.
He's probably distracted. Brandon does not appear in this episode, and they say he has the sniffles. So I don't know if that's just because they didn't want another temporary Brandon, or if he was always meant to not be in this episode. Based on how things go, it's probably better that he's not there. So maybe they had that on purpose. Victoria suggests that Mason should just throw in a little announcement of her pregnancy when he's giving his speech at the wedding or at the reception. Mason does not think that is a good idea. They talk once again about waiting a little longer, but also that this would not be seen appropriate by any member of the Capwell family.
And one thing I think we're really getting a window into with these last few episodes especially is just how difficult it is to marry into the Capwell family. We have poor Haley, who's not really getting much support from any of the men in the family. And we have, of course, Victoria, who's, had her brain picked for information on organizing the wedding, but is not allowed to be in the wedding party and now not allowed to make her announcement.
Yep. At some point, Victoria's going to snap, I think with that family. Maybe she'll even tell Mason, get out. Keith finds Gina in a set of yellow overalls. I guess they found one color they hadn't used for overalls during all of Kelly and Jeffrey's various costumes, and finding overalls in a closet that they did in various storage rooms and luggage storage places. He tries to talk her out of ruining the wedding. Gina sneaks onto the Capwell property and finds a man dressed in the same color overalls. So she's obviously scoped out this company. You see, Brick had been talking earlier to Eden and Ted about, oh, I know some guys from my days back in the circus, like Orcus Circus Tents or something, some 4-letter name starting with O. I can get us a tent. Not sure why they need a last-minute tent for this wedding. It doesn't seem to be raining, and it's happening at the gazebo anyway, which has a bit of a cover. But for some reason, they need to throw together a circus tent in 3 hours and install it on the property without Cece and Sophia noticing while they're getting ready for their luncheon. But Gina overhears the name of it, so...
And in the lead up to this, we have one of our... we've had these scenes before where we have a little angel Gina and a little devil Gina sitting on her shoulder while she mulls over what Keith has warned. And I don't think it's really a big surprise that she basically goes with the devil Gina. Although I do have to say that her villainy to me kind of pales between the overall, I don't know, obnoxiousness of Ted and Cece in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Almost kind of rooting for Gina to ruin the wedding so that she will free Sophia from marrying Cece. But anyway, that's just a point that we get to enjoy another little scene with the devil Gina and the angel Gina.
When she gets to the property, she talks to this other guy in the overalls who was busy putting up this tent. He says, we got to wait till bride and groom leaves. I think I have like 15 minutes to put it up. But she goes, oh, what does this rope do? And goes, oh, that brings down the whole thing. Whatever you do, don't pull that. Now, it's at this point that I assumed that this guy in the overalls was a friend of Brick's and that the wedding was actually not going to happen on the Capwell property at all. It was going to happen on the Orient Express, and that the whole circus tent thing was a trick to trap Gina in some trap that when she pulls that cable, it's going to bring down a cage on her and she'll be sequestered. That is what I assumed, but it turns out no. This is actually a circus tent being hired for the wedding, and this guy doesn't know to keep on the lookout for Gina at all. And it's kind of surprising because Brick's forewarned is forearmed, that he said to Santana in the last episode. Seems to not be very forearmed because they're talking openly at Johnny's about all these wedding plans when Gina's skulking around by the payphones. So I think they probably should have, if they have enough time to rent a circus tent in 3 hours, they could have had enough time to have a whole fake wedding to trap Gina with. That would have been fun, although I think what does happen is kind of fun. I just think things could have gotten way worse for them.
Also should mention that Gina also has another little tool she plans to use to disrupt the wedding. Obviously, learning that she can bring down the whole tent is going to be just perfect for her plans. But she does have a little mystery animal that she's brought with her in a cage.
Mm-hmm. Keith spots it in her room and looks under the tarp and goes, okay. Oh, I should mention that when Gina, after arguing with the devil and angel Gina says to them, I made up my mind anyway, without your help. So, Gina shows up with her skunk and gets it in position and gets ready to cut the rope at the perfect moment. But let's go back to Jeffrey, who is spending time in the sensory deprivation tank that we last saw a few weeks ago as part of his new job for the mysterious Dr. Alex Nicholas, who we see only as a shadow on the window watching Jeffrey in his tank. So the music they played was super ominous during this, even before we move into Jeffrey's fantasy that he's having inside the tank. He has a fantasy of shooting Mason for what he did to Pamela. And in the fantasy, Jeffrey blames Mason for Pamela's death. So this whole thing was super weird, and I kind of immediately got some sort of a Manchurian Candidate vibe from the whole thing. Like, is Dr. Nicholas purposely hypnotizing Jeffrey in this tank to make him kill Mason Capwell? I mean, this is like a bizarre conclusion to come to from one scene, but the ominous music and Dr. Nicholas watching from beyond, makes it seem that way. But how all these things would have come together, that Jeffrey, who, knew Pamela, and Dr. Nicholas, who knew Pamela, just happened to, end up in the same tank, at the same time. Like, I don't know. It seems kind of weird that if he was going to hypnotize Jeffrey, he could have done it months ago if he knows Pamela. So, I don't know.
I actually had to double check that we were watching Santa Barbara, because we had just finished watching an old episode of $6 Million Man, and this whole thing with the tank and the sinister scientist seemed to fit much more into that kind of program.
It came out of nowhere. We didn't really know that was Jeffrey in the tank. The room was a lot darker than when Jeffrey and Kelly were in those tanks, so we didn't, it wasn't clear that was the same tank. It was like very odd and creepy. So anyway, I'm excited about a creepy doctor showing up in Santa Barbara. They're always a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. Jeffrey is upset to hear Kelly talking to Mason about Pamela. And she tells him that Mason mentioned Pamela first, that she was just holding up her end of that conversation. But this argument is happening in the gazebo, where the piano has been set up for Jeffrey to play. Keith also shows up at the party. Brick tries to kick him out. He says, I'm just checking to see if Gina's here. I'm worried she might do something. He goes, well, yeah, I'm on the lookout. Fine, get out. So he kicks out Keith. But Brick is on high alert. Now, Brick is wearing these dark glasses, which I assume are to cover up his injuries that he has been hiding since the night of the attack on Haley. So
very, very suspicious that he would know that this may not be the ideal time to be sporting scratches around his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I should mention, too, that there is one very, very brief moment when it looks like Gina might actually step away from her plans a little bit, and that's when she comes across Haley, who's obviously very upset from her latest argument with Ted. And there is a moment where it almost looks like she might follow Haley out and comfort her, but she sticks with her plans.
Mm-hmm. She's changed, by the way, at this point into quite a nice purple and blue dress.
Mm-hmm.
And then it looks like Victoria is a bridesmaid after all, because she's kind of dressed the same as the other people in the wedding party, the other women. So I don't know if he can change her mind, or she's just very similarly dressed.
Now, there is a thing with some wedding planners nowadays where they actually coordinate what guests wear as well. But I don't think that was a trend back in the 80s. So.
Yeah, because when Mason asked Kelly, what was Jeffrey mad at you about? She sends him back to Victoria, and Victoria's sitting with the audience, not up the thing. But then again, this was during a time when the wedding wasn't actually actively happening. So Cece and Sophia are shocked when the chauffeur, Peter, I think they said his name was, didn't they? Something with a P. Brings them into the gazebo, and everyone yells, "Surprise! We're throwing you a wedding." They're both very happy about it, and neither Cece and Sophia seems to have any qualms about getting married immediately.
Although, as I said before, the fact that Sophia's basically been wearing a wedding dress all episode should maybe have been a bit of a tip-off for her.
Mm-hmm. The plan was, by the way, for the chauffeur to drive about 15 minutes, have a flat tire, spend some time changing it, and then drive back to the mansion. So I don't think they had too much time, like 45 minutes maybe, that they were gone to get everything organized. Gina releases the skunk and is about to cut the cable when Brick stops her. And she breaks free of his grip and comes running right through the gazebo. Cece grabs at her and accidentally pulls off her dress. So once again, Gina is without a dress in front of the Capwell family. She runs off, and when she gets into her car, the skunk is in the passenger seat. Now, this seems to be the most unlikely thing. because how would a skunk get in the car? Unless Keith put it there, because it wasn't Brick.
Yeah, it's possible. That sounds like a Keith move, actually.
But the weird thing is, it's a very expensive looking car.
Yeah.
It's obviously not Gina's, or did she end up with a car in that divorce? So if she's borrowed Keith's car, he certainly wouldn't want a skunk in it. So
I just thought maybe the window was open and somehow the skunk got in, but yeah. Doesn't really make a lot of sense if you think about it too much, but we could probably say that for a lot of things.
Brick comes running into the gazebo, says, "I just stopped Gina from bringing down this tent. And by the way, has anyone seen a skunk?" So next thing we know, Gina is coming home with 3 giant tins of tomato juice. So clearly she's been sprayed by the skunk. Keith shows up and asks if she's changed her perfume. And then 2 of Cece's men show up to say, "Guess where you're spending the next little while, Gina? In the Galapagos Islands. Cece is sending you down there." And Keith says, "Take her away."
Now, actually, looked at in a different light, a free trip to the Galapagos Islands is actually a pretty nice gift that a lot of people would love to have. A rather expensive trip to do on your own.
It's a long time to be on a plane while you smell like a skunk, because they did not let her take her tomato juice with her. So
clearly she's been exiled.
maybe she'll have 2 weeks off like Cruz.
Yeah.
Haley tells Ted she's embarrassed because of Gina, and he has to talk her back into returning to the ceremony. But they do, and Jeffrey resumes playing the wedding march, and Cece says, "Let's start it all over from the beginning." So it looks like the next episode will be the actual wedding and reception at the Orient Express, which is what's really happening there. But Brick notices a gentleman wander in just as things get started, and Brick goes to him, and he introduces himself as Dr. Alex Nicholas. And Brick says, "Are you a friend of the Capwell family?" And he says, "What else would I be?" So perhaps he too is an enemy of the Capwells. I mean, if he's a friend of Pamela's, he's probably gotten the same bad stories about Cece that Jeffrey has.
Yeah.
So anyway, nice to see a new potentially crazy doctor, and Michael Durrell has joined the credits as Dr. Alex Nicholas, so he'll presumably be around for a while. And we'll see what kind of wacky thing. Once you have people in tanks, things always go well, I think. So the credits basically are the usual ones, plus Alex Nicholas is new in the credits. And the day players are Minister Ron Ulstad and Omar Man Albert Pugliese. So Omar, that's the name of the tent rental company. It's kind of a weird name. Maybe tents are supposed to make people think of Arabia or something.
Maybe, yeah.
That's it for our Tuesday episode. We will see part 2 of the wedding next in episode 671. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Welcome back.
Hello.
We finished episode 671 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Wednesday, March 18th, 1987. And earlier this week, we watched It Takes a Thief, episode 215, The Naked Billionaire, and Mark Richmond, as he was billed, was in it. And then Wednesday, we watched the final episode of Canon, and Peter Mark Richmond was in it. So that was a nice double Peter Mark Richmond sighting this week.
He was very busy in the 70s.
Yeah, so that was nice. Any other Santa Barbara sightings we can remember?
Not that I don't think we've seen Marge Doucet lately.
No.
Although she pops up a lot too.
Yeah, other than our, every week seeing Cruz's dad on Harrio, in which he's a regular. We'll see what other people start showing up. All right. Now I've had some injuries to my wrists. I'm not allowed to type, so I've been learning to use voice access. So as I'm reading my summaries, which I use the voice controls to generate, if you hear weird words, that's because the voice access is not 100% useful at this point. All right, Haley says she's not going to the reception. Oh, that's right, there's a wedding going on. We're in the middle of a wedding. Haley says she's going to see the counselor tomorrow. Ted says he'll go with her. Haley tells Ted she's worried she didn't do enough to fight off her attacker. Alien Ted, that can't be right. Haley and Ted start to make love, but she can't go through with it. Not unexpected that this would be an issue for some period of time. Mason tells Ted he should see a counselor, telling him that his methods after what's her name died,
Mary.
of getting drunk and seeing faith healers was not the right way to do it. Diane, your computer just showed a thumbs down. Do you have any idea what that is?
No.
I hope it's not recording that. Yeah. Voice access, weird thumbs down image podcast until we can figure things out. Okay, let's see what other surprises the voice commands have for us. Cece sees Alex Nicholas and smiles. They are old friends. He introduces Alex to Sophia. Jeffrey thinks Alex looks familiar. Kelly insists that Jeffrey tell Mason that his mother is dead. Alex congratulates Jeffrey on his piano, and Jeffrey realizes who he is, the man in the photo with his mother. So his introduction in the previous episode was kind of nefarious, but it seems to be all happy and smiles at this point. Julia arrives very late. Eden invites her to the reception. She spots Mason and Victoria kissing and tries to get out of going to the reception. I seem to have missed the point where the wedding finishes, but it does, actually. I don't know if that got deleted. The wedding finishes is basically all I had, I think.
So they do actually successfully get married. I don't know if this is an official thing, if they sign paperwork or anything.
I think that normally gets done after. So the first bit of the episode is at the Capwell Mansion, and then we switch to the reception at the Orient Express. Pearl arrives, surprised that something is going on, and finds out about the wedding. Eden invites him to stay, even though he insists he's not dressed for it. Kelly invites Pearl to dance with her, to make Jeffrey jealous. That's what Jeffrey thinks. Maybe that's true. Jeffrey tells Kelly she's drinking too much. Cece makes a toast. It says here, Cece makes a toast of toast. Cece makes a toast, and a music box arrives as a gift for Sophia. Cece closes it immediately when it starts to play Pamela's favorite song. He says, I don't think even Mason would do a joke like this, but it's clear from the camera angles that Alex Nicholas is the one who arranged for this music box to show up. Cece and Sophia dance, and Alex cuts in to Cece's annoyance and ends up dancing with Sophia for far too long. At one point, he points out to her, the music has stopped. I wonder if Alex is going to try to take Sophia away from Cece as revenge. Victoria watches Julia and Mason talk about Haley. Mason offers Julia some champagne, and she turns it down. I don't know if this scene is meant to give Victoria more evidence that Julia is turning down as much champagne as she herself is, or if she's just realizing that the relationship between Mason and Julia seems to be closer than Mason has been letting on. Victoria tells Mason she's a little jealous of Julia. Julia asks Pearl if he's seen Kelly. He says, oh yeah, I saw Kelly. And I saw Jeffrey. They watch Mason feeding Victoria some cake. Mason brings Julia some cake, and she says, I can feed myself, thank you. Jeffrey cuts in on Pearl and Kelly dancing. She's not happy about it. They end up arguing, and Jeffrey follows her to the elevator. When the doors close, he runs down 2 flights of stairs to catch up with the elevator. All I kept thinking of is, this is the elevator that, Marcello Armonti set up the death trap in. And I would think every time Kelly gets into that elevator, she must think of it. And then seeing Jeffrey run down the stairs just like Marcello did on that fateful day. But she doesn't seem to be triggered by that elevator. Jeffrey gets in the elevator and stops it so he can kiss Kelly. Then they argue about Mason. Kelly kicks him out of the elevator and returns to the party alone. Sophia throws the bouquet, and I predicted as it was in midair that Julia would be the one to catch it. Julia goes home and stares at the ceiling. Eden shows up to tell her that Cruz has phoned he's found Dottie. Julia gives the bouquet to Eden, saying, "You'll be married long before me." "Is that the way you want it?" asks Eden. And Julia says, "That's the way it has to be." I feel like who knows that Mason and Julia were trying to have a baby at some point? Is anyone else who doesn't know for sure that it's... I mean, I guess both Pearl and Lionel know she was trying, and both know it's Mason's, right? So I'm just wondering if somehow Eden will put this together.
Yeah, possibly, although she's busy kind of working on a lot of different things right now. So
yeah,
whether this will be her top puzzle priority, we don't know.
This is another episode without Cruz. We just hear about what's going on in Las Vegas with him. Cece and Sophia finally make it to the bedroom for their honeymoon. And Jeffrey visits Dr. Alec Nicholas in his office/lab. Jeffrey wonders how close he and Cece are. And Alec says, "As close as you and Cece." So, this is interesting. Yeah, it'd be nice to hear some. I think maybe I didn't document this. Didn't we have a flashback in this episode? Alex had a flashback of Pamela. We actually saw an actress portraying Pamela. So we've had 2 actresses appear in photos, and then another one this week in the photos. So it's the 3rd actress, and I don't know if that's the same actress in the flashback. But yeah, we actually had some dialogue with Alex. I think Alex and Pamela. I can't quite remember. I had documented it, but then forgot to summarize it. But if I remember rightly, I think it's Alex being told by Pamela that she's going to marry Cece. Wasn't that what it was? So we'll find out a little bit more about that in the next episode, which we already watched. And we'll be doing the podcast for in a couple of hours after we've had a rest from this grueling episode. All right, if there was anything missed in the summary, in that bit that was cut, I'll mention it in the next episode. Anyway, what do you think about the new character of Alex Nicholas?
He hasn't really made a huge impression on me so far, so I don't really have a lot of ideas about him yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just by the fact that they're introducing him so ominously, and they put him in the credits on his first day. Clearly, he's meant to be important in this story, and as we'll find out in the next episode, he's not the only one who'll be showing up in Santa Barbara. But we will talk about that when we return after watching episode 672 of Santa Barbara. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Welcome back.
Hello.
We finished episode 672 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Thursday, March 19th, 1987. Mason moves into his new office. It's Julia's old office. And Julia has been pushed into basically a windowless closet.
See, that seems cold.
Mm-hmm. They gave Julia an office for a week at her new place and then bumped her down when they hired the new partner. Victoria helps Mason decorate. And while he's out of the room, she climbs up on a stepladder to put something up and loses her balance, just as Jake Morton comes in. looking for Julia, of course, because that used to be her office, and he catches her. Mason is very annoyed to find Victoria and Jake alone in a room together. Mason complains to Victoria about Julia defending Jake, and Victoria sticks up for just Jake being, innocent until proven guilty, and Julia doing what she thinks is right.
Yeah.
Julia complains to Lionel about her tiny new office. Lionel wonders what she's going to do when she starts to show, and she basically says, well, it's got nothing to do with Mason.
Yeah. It was kind of nice to see Lionel sympathizing with her over her crappy new office, and the fact that Mason is now her boss. I'm assuming that the reason why Mason skipped over her is because he has the experience as district attorney or assistant district attorney.
Yeah, because I thought when they were applying, a month ago, and I don't know if that was the same company, they were both applying for the same position.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And
I thought that was a partner too.
I thought so too, and I thought they actually mentioned that in the episode. But anyway, it's I would say their work relationship, apart from the Jake Morton case, is not off to the best start.
Yes. Jake arrives to complain that Mason already has him tried and convicted. I keep forgetting Mason's not the DA when people say things like that. Julia tells him not to drink any alcohol or get into any fights, because obviously she doesn't want any more black marks on his record when they go before a judge.
And that is sound advice, I think, for anyone.
Yeah, I feel like, Jake mentioned his dad's an alcoholic, so I'm kind of wondering if Jake is too, and he's going to have trouble not drinking.
Yeah.
There's a storm in Santa Barbara. This is something they do a couple times a year, have a nice storm to give some reality to the universe of Santa Barbara, but also it'll drive some little events.
Natural events like storms and earthquakes are not a good sign for people in this show.
No. Dr. Nicholas stops Jeffrey from unpacking the papers that he has in his box. He wants to do that himself. Makes me right away think, what secret nefarious things is Dr. Nicholas doing in this lab? Mm-hmm. It's the sensory deprivation lab, but there seem to be lots of chemicals and medicines around too. So be interesting when we get some clarification on it, just exactly what is happening in this lab.
Yeah, it's a very almost got a little bit of a mad scientist layer feel about it. Mm-hmm. It's not quite as awesome as the lab we saw in an old movie that we started watching last night called Just Imagine from 1930, which has all of the sort of coiled electricity and stuff. But this one's pretty good for a layer.
That movie has a guy, a scientist or a doctor, saying he's going to bring this man back to life, and then we see all this wacky equipment, and because he's, I guess, works at the university or whatever, there's like a little gallery of other scientists watching him, and I can imagine one of them going, "Yep, you got all the right equipment to bring someone back to life." Jeffrey shows Alex the photo of his mother and Alex that he found in his album, and that was of his graduation from, I think it was Harvard Medical School. And Alex says to Jeffrey, and 3 months after that photo was taken, she married Mr. C.C. Capwell. So I think we know that Alex and Pamela seem to have been dating at that time, and she kind of blindsided him by saying she was marrying C.C., presumably for the money. And whenever something like this information is revealed in a soap, I always think, wait, is there a chance Alex could be Mason's father?
That's interesting, because I'm not sure we're really... I'm assuming Jeffrey is younger than Mason, but are we clear about that?
Yes. Yeah. The power goes off due to the storm. Dr. Nicholas and Jeffrey race to put their various chemicals and medicines on ice. Kelly comes in with a check from Eden for the balance of what she owes him for the piano playing. He seems surprised at the additional check. Jeffrey tells her, oh, just give it to Cece and Sophia as a wedding present, which seems to annoy Kelly. Dr. Nicholas says she can stay and wait out the storm, because she has mentioned how bad the traffic was to get there. Kelly asks Jeffrey what she can do to help, and he says, oh, these chemicals have to be put on ice, to which she replies, I can just set them here and let you glare at them. This is a great episode with Kelly and Jeffrey dialogue. Robin Wright in particular, I think, is really great in this episode.
I also like that she basically asks him, the question I think a lot of people in the audience are wondering is, why don't you just do music?
Mm-hmm.
Since that's obviously where your talent and love lies.
And he takes that opportunity to dig in. Oh, maybe a rich girl like you can just do whatever she wants, but musicians need to pay the bills, and they generally can't support themselves with music. So.
See, that line is already getting old, and I think Kelly's reactions to it are starting to show that.
Jeffrey and Kelly do then reminisce about the time they were on the run, and just as they were about to kiss, the thunder startles Kelly, and the moment has passed. They then realize they're quite hungry and raid Dr. Nicholas's fridge and make some sandwiches. And then a guard shows up to tell them that the administration has decided to evacuate most of the buildings, and that everyone is to meet in the Student Union building. Kelly runs back to get her sandwich.
See, I don't think I'd want to eat a sandwich in a lab.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why wouldn't you go to the cafeteria or something? That's not romantic to me. That's just kind of icky.
Mm-hmm. At Johnny's, Carolyn is meeting a donor, because of course she's working, helping fundraising for USB, University of Santa Barbara. Gus urges Alice to forgive Carolyn. Lionel arrives and takes the opportunity to apologize to Carolyn for how he reacted to her, was it Valentine's Day? Dinner? Because, of course, he was expecting Augusta, and he said that he overreacted. Then he asks her if there's anything he can do to help with her fundraising. Just then the storm causes a sign to crash through the window, spraying glass everywhere. Now, the first time we see Johnny's in this episode, the camera zooms in through the window. I thought, oh, that's interesting. They, normally don't have that window up. But clearly it was there because later they would show the sign crashing through the window from outside. So I think the director thought, well, as long as we've got to have that window up for the later crash, why don't we do a zoom into the room to introduce Johnny's in this episode? So good directorial decision, I think.
I feel like there should be some kind of bylaw in Santa Barbara to make sure signage is properly affixed.
Tied down.
Yeah.
Yeah, signs and wind are... don't go together well in this city. Carolyn decides not to waste any resources by going to the hospital because she's sure a lot more, poor, badly injured people will need it. So Lionel bandages up her arm there, and we see Alice stroking her back. So Alice is kind of comforting her. So maybe maybe in the next episode, since they're all probably marooned there due to the storm, maybe we'll see Alice and Carolyn have a nice scene, actually.
Yeah.
Julia tells Mason she's leaving early because of the storm. Mason says he's going to do the same. He just has to finish this deposition. They end up talking about Jake and Gus again, the usual. Then after she's gone, Mason realizes he forgot to give her the deposition that she's going to need first thing in the morning. So he's going to have to chase after her to give it to her. So he calls Victoria at Johnny's and says, don't wait for me there. I'm not going to make it. Go straight home. I'll meet you there. I think they're all living at Mason's because the doorway's on the right and Victoria's doorway was on the left. Mason arrives at Johnny's. No, that's not right. Mason arrives at Julia's to bring her the deposition. Julia says, you look like a wet cat. Mason says, I prefer a wet lion. Julia makes him a meal of crackers, peanut butter, and tuna, which is all she had. Unless you want a frozen leg of lamb, I'll leave that for any frozen wolves that come to your door.
Now, crackers, peanut butter, and tuna is also maybe a hint that she's pregnant as well.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Oh, well, that's a good one. He, of course, keeps trying to call Victoria, both at Johnny's and at home, but the lines are down at various times. He can get a dial tone, but can't get through to either of those places. And then later in the evening, he can't even get a dial tone at Julia's place. Now, in my experience, during storms and power outages, the only thing that ever works in the 70s is the phones.
Yeah.
They always are up. So
Yeah.
I think that's because phone lines are buried, and back then most power lines were up in the sky, but of course they're burying them now too, probably for that very issue. Mason tells Julia that the family hasn't gone out of their way to make Victoria feel like one of them. And then, since they're talking about family, he asks Julia if she's thinking about having a kid again. She says, off and on. How about you? And Mason says, sometimes, especially now that I'm married. And, we see Julia's face throughout this whole thing, being kind of depressed that she and Mason aren't the married ones. I think it would be a shame if you didn't, says Julia. I think you're good father material. The interesting, when Julia does reveal she's pregnant, if Mason will immediately realize it's his, or I don't know who, maybe she'll do a similar thing and come up with some other plausible father or a random donor. I mean, there's always Pearl. We're kind of wondering what Pearl's storyline is going to be.
Yeah.
It's always Lionel, of course, but I think, as they said, Augusta would kill them both. At Johnny's, the bartender, whose name I've forgotten, even though we got his name some time ago, complains to Jake that Brick is forcing them to serve anyone. So the bartender seems to think Jake is guilty too. Of course, the bartender is one of our three big suspects, Jake, Brick, and the bartender. Brick offers Victoria a drink, and she accepts a hot chocolate instead. Another little clue if anyone's trying to put things together. When Mason phones to tell her that he's not going to meet up with her, she decides to head home. And as she is putting on her coat, Jake, who's been watching her ever since he caught her, leaves Johnny's. The bartender then asks Brick if he can leave too, because he tells him his roof is leaking. Then Brick tells Gus to take over, because he's leaving too.
We got
He's
our three
gonna
suspects.
Go check on Johnny. So, yep, all three suspects. I don't think Pearl's really at our top, but he's really the only other guy in the show it could be, I think, if it's not a fifth unseen person.
Mm-hmm. Which is what happened basically with the whole thing with Gus. It was some other guy.
Oh, that's true, yeah. So
Yeah.
it could be that they're giving us these red herrings and they'll sneak in another person. I don't really remember how it turns out, actually. So I think the bartender, but we don't know. Victoria gets home, and as she's looking for candles, she hears noises in the house and calls for Mason. When she finally lights the candle, she sees her apartment is actually messed up, and the rapist grabs her from behind, once again wearing a stocking on his head. Don't scream, he says. Don't make a sound if you want to stay alive.
So I'm just trying to figure out when I was watching this if this meant that the rapist had followed her home, which we're definitely lining up our three suspects. That's kind of the implication. But if the apartment's already messed up, I wonder if it could be another person who was laying in wait for her.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. Presumably, the bartender doesn't know where Victoria lives. Probably Brick does. I don't know if Jake would. So, yeah. That is kind of an interesting thing. I mean, the only reason I'm thinking the apartment was messed up, not because we could really see it because it was so dark, but because when she got the candlelight on, she kind of looked startled, and that's what I assumed that was. So maybe that'll be wrong when the lights come on. But it looks like, the one thing no one's really talked about since the rape, crisis counselor did on the very first day was, you don't want him to do this to someone else, and no one's really been worried about the fact that there's a rapist loose. Probably because the ones who should be worried are the ones who think it's Jake. So, although Jake is loose too. So, I don't know if that's what Mason was necessarily concerned with just trying to get through to Victoria, but probably everyone should have that in the back of their mind.
I'm wondering if this could lead us to almost a little bit of a replay of the Peter scenario, where, of course, he was the Carnation Killer and all things led to Kelly, and I wonder if we will see Kelly or Eden imperiled by this person at some point.
Oh, it did occur to me that Dr. Nicholas left the lab before Kelly and Jeffrey started making their sandwich and never was seen again in this episode. So that is another character that it could be, because we don't really know when he came back from Europe. So got to keep him as a potential suspect too. So, and somehow I glossed over this when I was doing my summary, but when Jeffrey and Alex were talking about his setup and everything and exactly what do you do here, he mentioned his unofficial assistant, his daughter Elena Nicholas, who is still in Europe, but will be coming soon. I peeked ahead, April 14th, so a whole month before we get to see Elena.
Build up to her.
So, yes, she's one of the 3 people, I think, that said that show up in town as a result of the Jeffrey storyline. So we've had Alex show up, and now Elena, and there'll be 2 more appearances this year, all related to this family, let's say. All right. That's it for episode 672. We'll be back after we watch the Friday episode 673 of Santa Barbara. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Nothing's going to help this office except arson.
How's that?
All right, it looks more crooked than it did when I thought it was straight.
It does
It does,
not.
too. We can't have anything crooked in an attorney's office except for the client.
Welcome back.
Hello.
We finished episode 673 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Friday, March 20th, 1987. Now, we started rewatching The Bionic Woman, and they went up to Ojai in the episode that we saw yesterday, which was part 2 of The Return of the Bionic Woman from the $6 Million Man. And guess who else is in Ojai? Cruz Castillo! He is coming back with Dottie. Cruz and Eden bring Dottie to the Capwell house, where they encounter Haley and Ted, who immediately start chatting with Dottie, their witness. I feel like Cruz and Eden really dropped the ball here. Because
I knew this was a bad idea as soon as Eden said, "Oh, I'll go with you," and Cruz went off too.
Cruz gets a call that another woman has been attacked, so he and Eden just leave. And Haley, despite her best efforts, cannot stop Ted from badgering Dottie the entire time, telling her, "Oh, I think you got paid off by Jake. I think you were drunk. And, do you want a months-long trial where you're questioned constantly?" And then he tries to pay her to leave. It's utterly bizarre. And in the end, she just decides not to testify on Jake's behalf. I feel like this is probably the worst thing Ted Capwell's ever done.
Yeah, he's definitely channeling Cece. He's Cece's son in this episode for sure.
Yeah. Victoria tries to reason with the rapist, telling him that he'll be responsible for murder as well, since she is pregnant and has been warned by the doctor not to risk having sex. She manages to get the knife away from him briefly, and they end up fighting on the balcony. Keith questions the other woman who was attacked. She managed to get away from her attacker, and describes the same person who attacked Haley with the cowboy boots and the the height. Now, the height of it makes me think Pearl isn't really a suspect, because I think Pearl's shorter than our other three suspects who are all tall.
Yeah, it's interesting because we have a lot of scenes with Victoria fighting off this rapist, and it's actually a very intense episode.
They talk a lot.
They talk a lot. And at first, I thought the guy actually sounded a lot like Pearl. He's doing the weird kind of accent.
Yeah.
But as they keep pointing out, he is fairly tall. So I don't know. I don't think of Pearl as being particularly tall. So to me, that would kind of put it more towards the bartender. But I haven't noticed him having the weird accent. So.
Well, looking at what you can see in the background, looking at the face with the mask, it doesn't look like Brick to me, and it doesn't look like Jake to me. So,
no.
But the bartender and Jake do have similar features, so I feel like if it is the bartender, then they went with that on purpose. But it also, it doesn't sound like the bartender's voice that we've heard before either.
As I say, to me, as soon as I heard it, I thought, oh, is that Pearl? And he just seemed a little bit big for Pearl. But yeah, so it's as I say, it's very intense, and honestly didn't find this a particularly pleasant episode to watch. But yeah, he doesn't drop any. There's really no clues from the stalking mask at all.
Keith questions the woman who was attacked, and he decides that Jake matches this description. Cruz and Eden investigate the crime scene on the beach, right near Johnny's, and they find a matchbook from the Abernathy stables, which seems to be enough, I think, for both Cruz and Eden to think suddenly that it is Jake, which is weird because they have Dottie's testimony, and it's weird that a stable would have a matchbook. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, that's weird too.
Especially since there's a lot of straw around. I think they'd want to dissuade people lighting matches. Then a call comes in saying that a woman was seen struggling with an attacker at Mason Capwell's apartment. And Cruz and Eden rush over there to find the apartment messed up but empty. Haley tells Ted she's going to withdraw her statement. After visiting Keith and getting the statement from him, she tears it up. But then Cruz arrives with the knife from Victoria's place and the matchbook from Abernathy stables. And Keith announces that Jake Martin is definitely the pillowcase rapist, so they have come up with this name for him.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking about this all the way through, that we suddenly see Cruz again. Apparently the trip to Montana is completely off. I don't know why they even bothered with that.
Yeah.
But they seem to have constructed this whole episode apparently for Cruz to come and rescue Victoria, and then they kind of take it in a whole other direction. So that kind of made it interesting for me.
Mason, of course, has been unable to leave Julia's place this entire night because the road was too muddy. They keep calling it the cliff road that they have to get up to. He suggests that he and Julia climb up there, but Julia says, I don't feel like climbing, not wanting to reveal, of course, that she's pregnant and doesn't want to risk her baby. She also has some pains at one point, which, doesn't make Mason suspicious about anything. But he tries to feed her a bunch of brandy, which she secretly pours into the flower pot when he's not looking. So they end up spending several hours together, and he says it feels odd being alone with her now that he's married, because it's the same vibe as before, but of course they are not going to do anything about it. Victoria bursts in, telling them she managed to get away from the rapist. Now, just logistically on where they're located. About the
logistics too.
I don't think Mason lives near the beach. How did she end up running? Like, maybe she ran to Cruz and Eden's first as her default thing. But of course they're out, so the place was sealed up. So she ran over 2 doors over to Julia's. That's the only reason I can think why'd she go to Julia's, right?
Yeah, and I was also trying to figure out, did she know Mason was there? Because I kind of got the feeling that she didn't realize Mason would would be there.
Because she
Yeah.
he knew she was going to. She knew he was going to drop off some papers to Julia, but I don't think after these many hours she would have any reason to think that he would still be there. So, maybe somehow, of all the people she knows in Santa Barbara that live near Mason's apartment, Cruz and Eden / Julia would be the closest because they live right near each other. And the beach that they are on is presumably not the beach that Johnny's is on. There's the docks that Johnny's is on is near kind of, the ferry dock where, people would take Pearl's Ferry to get to the casino. Don't know how near that is to the yacht club dock that we know the Lockridge yacht and the Capwell yacht are in. When we were in Santa Barbara 2 years ago now, we did walk like quite a ways between the pier and the area where the sailboats and things are docked. It was quite a bit of walk. Of course, it was super hot, so maybe it felt longer.
I was thinking about that too. That was a really long slog, and that's just along the beach. It's an area that doesn't really have any houses on it, so I can't imagine how far Victoria would have had to go to get down to this beach house, which she's not necessarily expecting anyone she knows to be at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I feel like she must have targeted Cruz's place, and somehow that was running down a muddy hill was her best plan. So, just looking at people comings and goings on my little list that I have, which I made from the IMDb listings. I see that in episode 667, which we did last week, an actress is listed as having her final episode. Jean Carr is listed as nurse. Now, I looked at that episode and I couldn't find any scenes that took place in a hospital. So I'm not sure which nurse that would have been. But apparently she's played a nurse in 48 episodes, going all the way back to episode 1 of Santa Barbara. So, Jean Carr, thanks for playing a nurse for the last 3 years. And speaking of comings and goings, I believe we have 2 actors that we will see for the last time next week. And we will be seeing Minx again next week. So that was, I think, is her second last time we'll be seeing her. So look forward to seeing Dame Judith Anderson again.
It's kind of funny because I've been predicting that she would leave the show probably for most of the time we've been watching it because of a random comment you made to me when we started watching the show, was that Dame Judith Anderson wouldn't be on that long. So it's just a little warning about maybe having too much information before you start watching a series.
That's it for this episode and for week 138. So we will be back in 2 weeks with week 139. This one's going to be posted a little late because between my medical issues that I've had a few appointments with, I had a bunch of other things happen. My crown fell off, so I had to take 2 separate, very long trips to the dentist. And Diane, you've had some.
I've had half of my eye surgery, so we're awaiting the other half quite anxiously, I would say.
But you can see without glasses now.
In one eye, yes.
I'll get you an eye patch. So anyway, long story short, that's delayed me getting this episode out, which should have been out last Friday, and today's Monday. So, last Saturday. 2 days ago we should have posted it, but we only had 4 episodes recorded. So I'll probably just not rush to put this one out. I'll probably just do it next Saturday, and so it'll be 3 weeks in between episodes for this one. But as I'm getting used to this audio method of controlling my computer, I think we might be able to get the next 5 episodes recorded at the normal pace. So sorry about that delay.
We're a couple of wrecks.
Yeah. We have a temporary crown now, so I'm going to have to do one more trip out there to get the permanent one in a couple of weeks. So, All right, we'll see you after we start week 139. See you then.
Bye-bye.
Those overalls are kind of kicking. Any particular reason you're wearing them?
I enrolled in plumbing school.
I just couldn't help thinking about you here, cooking up some harebrained scheme to ruin CeCe's wedding.
I have to do this. Don't you understand? I have a reputation to uphold. The Capwells would be terribly disappointed if I didn't do my best to ruin their happy moment.
That is